It's a project with a very heady program, with a very heady name, isn't it?
Yeah.
And so I admire your courage for sticking with it and believing in it very passionately. And it's developed and I think it's become a whole lot better, I think, than when I saw it. So I think that all of that is very good. So and I enjoy your conviction to the idea. Is purity a big thing with this project? Like purity in form, I'm talking architectural purity.
Well, I mean, I believe the use of nice square diagram, I like to think it's not an arbitrary choice in and of itself. I think that the usefulness of this diagrammatic approach, its usefulness to the process-based design, and also the 9 meter stand, which happens to be very conventional. So it's
okay, because one way of seeing that is that you would take the 9 square and you would project absolutely from that. And if you walked up to the building, you'd almost cut your hand on the corner that it made, and so on. You know.
Sure.
Is that part of this thinking?
Well, there is. It has been used as a formal apparatus and a compositional unit, if you would. This 9 square diagram here, you can see it starts with 3 by 3, 3 by 3, 9 by 9, and 27 by 27.
But if you go to a plan,
every hole sits within 4 of these squares here.
Sure. But if you go to your plan, just put your plan up. It's just the purity of that, and you've got some imagery here of some very powerfully geometric building.
So this is ground floor plan.
Yeah. So where's the 9 square, for instance?
You can see, it has been expressed through the pavements here. This is 3 by 3. This here, you can, the cubic grid indicates this is 27 by 27. 9 by 9. So you can see, if you use that as a reference, you could see the logical expansion and organization of the building through this logic. Here is a 3 by 3 again, 9 meters by 81 meters. The cell of light and darkness sit within a 9 by 9 square shape. The assembly hall again sits within a larger 27 by 27, 4 next to each other. So this is where approximately in that diagram I have shown where the assembly hall sits. Also the swimming pool, swimming pool again, I got that out again. The pool here is also 9 meters wide and 80 meters long. In different parts of the building, this, as I said, is both planar and volumetric. For instance, in the section, if you look at that, this clearly indicates the height of the building, which is 9 meters high. Obviously, when we go down, it touches the ground, but the levels are 3 meters high. So this expansion of 9 square diagram has happened in both planar and volumetric aspects of the building.
Geometry is an amazing thing, isn't it? I am very, over time, human beings, particularly architectural human beings, put together their works using geometry. And one of the things that the circle does, and the square does, and the cube and the sphere, it's very complete, and it is pure, even in the way that it's constructed. But the interesting thing to me is this idea that you have of a place where conflicting positions can be resolved. That's what your hope is, isn't it? So that we can come together with varying ideas and come to some level of peace about things. And so it seems to me that because these are human constructs, and abstracted probably from a purifying nature, that we have already preconceived ideas about what they do. So I think one of the ways that you could imagine it is if you think about what conflict is, and it's the untying of a knot, or it's somebody having a strong position, someone yielding, somebody understanding, and it's a flow between things that are open and closed potentially, or things that are tight and loose. And I'm thinking, when you go back to your beautiful 12-petal flower, which has all the faiths on it, it has the yin-yang symbol, maybe you could flick it back, the yin-yang, and then it's got the right there. If you go back to it, you've got yin-yang, you've got a radiating geometry within the flower. There it is, yes. So we've got the heavens, we've got the yin-yang symbol, we've got the snail. And it seemed to me that you, right in the beginning, had these clues that you could work with the relationship between things that are enclosing and tight and formal and pure, and the ones that suggest an opening up, a kind of letting go, because that's what we have to do to resolve problems. So the idea of working with a circle and squares and cubes and spheres together with the contrast. So the free line, or the Fibonacci series, which is expansive, it seemed to me you'd be able to, because I'm looking at the way, when Chris was speaking, you could already see the undoing of the 9 square in the way that you would read it physically in the space. So you could strengthen your 9 square cube and then work with some of the things that are hard to shoehorn into that. You could allow that to be part of a free geometry, like a geometry that's taking an open-ended view of life, like the Fibonacci series, which is the growth spiral, or like the yin-yang, which sets one thing up against another, so that in a way you're undoing a single position. So you see, so you become, like we all do, you get fascinated by the potential of geometries when you subdivide and you increase, and they can do something at a tiny scale and a big scale. It's fascinating, it's like chess. But when you go back to your original position, which is how to make a place of reconciliation, there's this potential to introduce the interruption to the single view. And that's where geometry could have helped you, and that would be the next step. That would be one way, I think, that you could keep your fascination for geometry and get back to your original, my aim is to make a building where I think this could happen. And it could open up into a space that's not built, and it could come closing into the thing that is most sheltered. Because you can see two sides of those symbols. Okay?
Thank you very much.
Amir, can I have a look at your schematic? Because there are some sketches right at the beginning, right at the very beginning of your presentation.
Sorry, these images are a bit too...
The red ones.
Sure.
You know the ones I want?
Yeah. On a tracing paper.
There.
Yeah.
That one on the lower left-hand corner.
Yeah.
It's a beautiful drawing.
What a drawing.
And
Lost the clarity, isn't it?
and it would have been wonderful to develop that very elemental yet clear drawing of that, for me, encapsulates everything you were talking about. You know? You've got a great palette for taste. That is, you like lots of taste, you know, and you can't help yourself, which is wonderful. I mean, it's a great trait. But it would have been interesting to try and put all that taste into that simple drawing. Difficult, but interesting. One thing I noticed with your three-dimensional images is that you only once showed the surrounding area. And I think it's quite important that you see this thing in a place. You actually see it positioned in the world, in a place in the world, in the universe, because that's how it's that sort of building. So that's a really important thing. And the other thing I sort of bring to your attention is your computer drawings are very, their origins are the computer, they're not your head. If you look at that drawing there, You know, the way you've set up your planning even is based on what tables were available in the computer. And I'm not being critical of it, I'm just saying we've got to be very, very careful of that because it limits our creativity. You know, why didn't you draw like a big long table, for instance, at one end, or, you know? And that's, for me, you've got to be careful of that. And if I'm a multi-religious person or someone that can accommodate a temple, interdisciplinary temple, what sort of place do I want to go to? I mean, I sort of want to go somewhere which is quiet, and maybe it's a garden, which you've got, like that's the start of a lovely garden in your section, in your cross section. And maybe it's sort of an entrance where I can be a bit anonymous. And maybe it's a room where you know, I went to the Church of Light in Los Angeles like 2 weeks ago. It's huge. But there's this incredible sort of ramp walkway up into it, and you can enter any one of 16 to 20 positions and be anonymous. And it's quite amazing, that sort of voluminous anonymity, right? It's really quite interesting. So I think you've got like some great architectural talent, and I think reduction is a good word that would be, you could maybe have a look at over the next 60 years.
For sure.
And that, you know, like I know we've talked about that once before.
Sure.
And you sort of looked us in the eye and said, yeah, I'm with you. Yeah. I think out of that reduction could come incredible beauty.
And I think there was a very memorable Peter talk about a poet using the task of a poet is to use the least possible words, or at least trying to say the most.
It's a difference between literature and poetry.
Because it really resonates.
Is that for dramatic effect? The shuffle?
I'm just trying to
No. I
piece my thoughts
was
together.
looking at Amir.
I think at the heart of all of this is the issue of peace. That's what we all want to achieve. You, all the various cultures that are in conflict in this particular area, us in this country with the environment and politicians, but we really want to come to some sort of peaceful agreement about life on this planet because we're in a serious situation. So we're in absolute accord about that. Then I think what we as architects have to ask ourselves is, what are the ways within architecture through light and form and gardens that we can engender this quality within this particular place so that the people who are going to come here are going to be moved and made to feel these qualities and to become in their minds and in their hearts able to come to agreement about these issues. That is your task.
Yeah.
Am I correct?
Sure. If I may make
No, I'm not asking you a question
Sure.
about that. I'm just reading what I'm seeing here and in what you said to introduce your project. So then I think that you would be best over the years to come, with your considerable ability, to study these issues of light and water and gardens and geometry, which you're starting to get into, a little more closely about how simply to engender this quality. Now, my reaction to your scheme is one, at first, of wonderment, because I think it's a great task you have set. But when I look at the model, I see too many conflicts happening, not just of form, but of structure, of light coming into a domed form, of the lack of garden in which this pearl because it's this way around, you've drawn it like boule in your section, right?
Yeah.
Can come to exist. And I think, as Dutch suggested, that reduction is a really important thing for you to follow, reductive thinking. And be careful when you have a form like the circle and the square, when you bring that too close to the edges of the square, you start to get conflicts happening there that can't resolve themselves.
Sure.
Right? And that happens in several sections of your model. So I think that in your mind you should go back to the beginning, and Stutz pointed out that drawing on the bottom left-hand side was very simple. It was embracing arms and a beautiful form that resolved itself on itself, the circle and the sphere. Okay? And somehow bring that to a much more peaceful series of interconnections.
Sure.
Okay?
Thank you very much for your valuable.
Just
Awesome.
one little
Listen.
tiny little quick rider.
Sure.
Another way to go to another layer is to start thinking about a place for 2 people, a place for 12 people, a place for 20 people, and a place for the 200 and something you've got. Because if you can make peace between 2 people, you've got a scale of space and places where that could happen. You can imagine much more rather than be thinking in the diagram. So in these gatherings there will have to be the thinking through the people thing.
Sure.
And how they're going to come to peace.
We commend you.
Yeah, we
Right.
do. Yeah.
Yeah.
Thanks, Amir.
Thank you.